Yeah, I'm actually trying to remember. There was a story of a mother that I'm trying to remember if her son was one of the hostages. I think her son is one of the hostages. And she was saying, I love my son, but I love my country and the people in it. And she was really advocating not to make any sort of deal that would jeopardize the lives of citizens. She was saying, I remember now, she has a younger daughter. She has, the son is older, maybe a teen or in his 20s, and she has a little daughter who's 5 or 6 years old. And she said, by making some sort of like a prisoner swap that's going to bring in more dangerous people, you're jeopardizing the life of my little girl and other citizens. Does that sound familiar?
So there are different opinions. You know, the families of the hostages, they're from all walks of life in Israel. They have different opinions.
Of course.
All of them want to see their loved ones back 100%. And our job is to make sure that the plight of the hostages is the top of minds, not only in Israel, because it is the top of minds in Israel.
Right.
If it's for the government, the prime minister, the soldiers on the ground, the Israeli public, everywhere, in the media. But we need to make sure that the plight of the hostages is at the forefront of every international discussion about the war.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's overlooked. I mean, in too many times it's overlooked, because when I go on air, and that's my job, to give interviews to the foreign media, to American media, international outlets, and speak for the prime minister's office. But honestly, I speak for Israel. It is my job to remind everyone that the number one humanitarian issue in Gaza right now is the plight of the hostages. There's nothing more humanitarian than that. So, to your point, many families of the hostages, well, they think differently about the war, about the strategy of what is right and what is wrong to do in order to bring their loved ones back. But we know that the only thing that works against Hamas is heavy military pressure. And that is what created the conditions back in November to exert diplomatic pressure and find this framework by which we saw the release of some of the hostages. Obviously, that is not enough. We want to see all of them back home.
I think that a big, scary part of the story that has happened since October 7th, and I can say for myself as someone who spends a considerable time on social media, is seeing the gaslighting that is happening.
They call it Gaza lighting.
Oh, gosh, I love that term. That's so perfect, because that's exactly what it is. Just to see you literally see a hostage telling her story and people saying lies. It's not true. And I can just imagine that someone for you in this position that's busy trying to tell the truth all the time, and this is what you're getting and the kind of questions that you're being asked. You know, we were talking about before the most outrageous things that some of these newscasters can come up with, and they can actually say these things like they, is just shocks you to your core.
Indeed. It's not just about speaking the truth. It's about reminding people of the truth, because people tend to forget why we're in this.
Right.
Or, in some instances, people think, October 7th happened. Israel went into war in Gaza, and here's what Gaza looks like today. Also forgetting that all the while, there are like 14,000 missiles that have been raining on our cities and communities from the south and the north, both Hamas and Hezbollah and Palestinian Islamic Jihad, which is the second largest terrorist group in Gaza. So, the Israel and the war are constantly in the media headlines. But the problem is that the news cycle within it is super, super short. And for example, for many, many days, we were operating in Gaza City, in the area, in the vicinity and around and underneath the Shifa hospital, where there was a big command and control center of Hamas. And the media kept urging us, well, where's the evidence? Where's the evidence? The moment we released abundant evidence, we even took reporters there. I think that's when the hostage deal was starting to take shape. The media attention already shifted to another story.
Gosh.
Or, for example, Now, on last Friday, the International Court, the World Court, the ICJ, published its provisional measures that basically said that Israel should be doing what it's already doing in Gaza, and they didn't tell us to stop the war, stop defending yourself, and stop going after your stolen people in Gaza, which we saw as a very, very good development, positive development. The attention was on the World Court, but then UNRWA, the UN agency dedicated to the so-called Palestinian refugee problem, they at the very same time when it was published, they snuck out this announcement, we're also cutting ties with 12 UNRWA employees that Israel passed as the information were directly involved in the massacre of October 7th. Well, so it was a powerful, message enough that the media attention also shifted to that. But, simultaneously, when they tried to release it on the very same day that the ICJ just published its interim decision.
It seems like their house of cards is starting to collapse. It seems like quite a few countries have now pledged to freeze funding to UNRWA, right?
Yes.
So
9 or 10 countries now.
Yeah, I think it was
Japan
even
being the latest.
Yeah. I think I saw at least 12, which is really incredible to think that, wow, it only took 100. How many days to get here?
115. Listen,
right?
This UN agency is flawed to its core. Its mere existence is unprecedented. No other group of people around the world has a dedicated UN agency to their so-called refugee problem. And just to remind you, they're educating generation after generation, 5, 6 generation now, that they're refugees of wars that they themselves started. And until when? Until the state of Israel will cease to exist. They are refugees even though they have citizenship in other countries, be it Jordan or even places in Europe. They are refugees even though they were born on Palestinian soil and under Palestinian rule. So it's not about that. And, it has UN in its name and its title, but it's a Palestinian-run agency by Palestinians for Palestinians under the auspices of the United Nations.